Pokémon Scarlet and Violet left around 300 Pokémon out of the game, with groups such as the Ultra Beasts, the Tapus, the Aura Trio, and the Gen 8 fossils being among them. With some of these Pokémon appearing in Legend ZA, and Scarlet and Violet having Pokémon that didn't appear in Sword and Shield, these absent Pokémon will inevitably come back in Pokémon Champions. So in this video, I thought it would be interesting to discuss how these removed Pokémon would function once they return, with potential access to new moves, new items, and new Pokémon as partners. I'll be focusing less on mons that would break the game with Terra, like Shedinja and Xerneas, and more on ones that would help balance out the metagame from current top threats. First up is Tapu Bulu. I clown on Tapu Bulu a lot on this channel for being inferior to Rillaboom, but it genuinely has something majorly in its favor, which is that fairy typing. I've said in a previous video that Tapu Bulu would be better off if it was a mono grass type, but I definitely take that back because I was really overrating how bad it was to have a 4x weakness to poison. While it's never good to have a 4x weakness, poison is definitely the least bad 4x weakness to have, because poison just isn't great offensively in general, and it has little to no common utility attacking moves to worry about. While you could make an argument for Bug and Steel being the least bad 4x weaknesses to have, Bug has the very common U-turn, and they both have the advantage of not having any types or abilities that are immune, so if you're really worried about that 4x poison weakness, just have a Steel type in the back to switch to. Anyway, this fairy typing gives Tapu Bulu a resistance to knockoff, a neutrality to U-turn, and an immunity to dragon, and its grass typing gives it a resistance to electric, meaning that it walls Miraidon and overrides Miraidon's electric terrain with grassy terrain. To hit Tapu Bulu for super effective, Miraidon would have to run Flash Cannon or Overheat, and without electric terrain to activate Hadron Engine, an Assault-vested Tapu Bulu could survive an Overheat from a Choice Specs Miraidon. It still lacks Fake Out, Grassy Glide, and Play Rough, but walling one of, if not the strongest Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet is no joke. Next up is Tapu Fini. I won't be talking about every Pokemon from the groups I mentioned in the intro, since I've already talked about Tapu Koko in a different video on my second channel, and I think Tapu Fini would be great anti-meta in the presence of Urshifu. As a water fairy type, it resists all 3 stabs from both Urshifu forms, with it also walling the stabs of Chi-Yu, Chien-Pao, and Koraidon. While Misty Terrain is probably the worst of the 4 terrains, it's still good and just hasn't seen a lot of use since Galarian Weezing would much rather be using Neutralizing Gas. It could be used as counterplay to Ursaluna since it wouldn't be able to get burned from the Flame Orb. It could be good counterplay to Sneasler since it wouldn't be able to spread status from Dire Claw, although Tapu Fini would still be hit for super effective from Dire Claw. It straight up is good counterplay to Spore, and with Gen 9 introducing 2 new Spore Mons, a field condition that prevents status conditions is quite beneficial to have. Tapu Fini will probably lose access to Scald since like no one gets that move anymore, but if it keeps the rest of its moves, it still has access to Muddy Water, Moonblast, Dazzling Gleam, Calm Mind, Heal Pulse, both screens, Taunt, Trick, and Icy Wind. While it walls many common threats, it's also weak to the common threats of Raging Bolt, Rillaboom, and Ogerpon. It's overall just a great mon that could balance out some of the hardest Pokemon to deal with in recent formats. Next up is Celesteela. As an Ultra Beast, it has a 570 base stat total, and they are very well rounded just with low speed, allowing it to function well both offensively and defensively. It has a fantastic typing, one of the best defensive typings in the game, which would allow it to wall the stabs of Ursaluna. It gets Wide Guard, a great support move in restricted formats, and it has the best defensive stat and typing combo of any non-restricted Wide Guard user in the game. So if you're not using Zamazenta or Lunala, Celesteela is probably the next best user of Wide Guard. It gets Leech Seed, which deals chip damage, heals itself, and could also be used as a way to force a switch against a boosted opponent. When going on offense, it has seen use on the physical and special side. On the physical side, it gets Heavy Slam, which is great because Celesteela is tied for being the heaviest Pokemon in the game. This is good for hitting special walls and mons that are weak to steel like Fluttermane. On the special side, it gets Air Slash, Flash Cannon, Meteor Beam, Giga Drain, and Flamethrower. Part of Celesteela's success in Sword and Shield was definitely due to Dynamax, since Max Airstream was so good, and it wasn't as good in Sun and Moon because of that, but due to the increasing need for Wide Guard, with more Pokemon getting spread moves, and the valuable resistances it provides, it would still be nice to have Celesteela in a non-Dynamax format. Next up is Stakataka. We have another Ultra Beast with a similar role to Celesteela as a Steel type with Wide Guard, but Stakataka has a few things different about it to set it apart. It's part rock instead of part flying, which is definitely a downgrade overall, but it does come with some useful resistances and neutralities compared to steel flying. You resist ice and rock, and you're no longer weak to fire and electric, so you don't have to worry as much about Calyrex Ice, Ogerpon Cornerstone, Incineroar, and Miraidon. You just have to instead worry about Urshifu, Ursaluna, and Landorus. It gets Trick Room and has the lowest speed in the game of any Trick Room user, the 3rd lowest of any fully evolved Pokemon, and the 9th lowest speed overall, so it's pretty much guaranteed to go first. Gyro Ball is a great move to take advantage of that low speed stat, as it gets stronger the slower the user is compared to the target, which can easily one-shot fast Fairy and Ice types like Fluttermane and Chien-Pao. It got Body Press in Sword and Shield, and has the 3rd highest defense of any Body Press user, allowing it to turn its defense into offense. The two 4x weaknesses are definitely an issue, but they could be easily patched up with Terra if Stakataka ever gets access to it, and when combined with its high defensive stats, it's going to be able to stay on the battlefield for a long time. Next up is Kartana, the last Ultra Beast I'll be talking about, I promise. A much more offense-oriented Pokemon compared to Celesteela and Stakataka, with an insanely high 181 attack and 109 speed. As an Ultra Beast, it gets the ability Beast Boost, which increases its highest stat by 1 stage, which will always be attack for Kartana, unless it uses a timid nature and has the right IV to make speed its highest stat. Unfortunately, this neat tech will probably go away with Champions very likely getting rid of IVs, but there's still a chance that Kartana can raise its speed in a different way, and that's if they give it Trailblaze, the 50 base power grass type move that raises speed by 1 stage. While the developers are pretty generous with this move's distribution, I think it's probably not happening since Breloom didn't get it, but it is at least interesting to point out and speculate. What it will have access to is the Clear Amulet as counterplay to Intimidate, and some great new partners such as Chien-Pao. With a Jolly Nature and max attack investment, most neutral Leaf Blade hits and super effective Sacred Sword hits can go from a guaranteed 2-hit KO to a chance to 1-hit KO with the help of Chien-Pao. For example, a Leaf Blade against a 4 HP Ogerpon Wellspring does 73 to 86% without Sword of Ruin, but 98 to 115 with. A Sacred Sword against a 252 HP Incineroar goes from 71 to 84% to 95 to 115%. However, with speed stats getting higher and a pretty limited move pool including no physical priority, I feel that Kartana would be quite balanced but a great option on hyper offense teams. Next up is Yveltal. Everyone always likes to talk about how Xerneas would go nuts with Terra Fairy or Terra Ground Terra Blast if it was in Gen 9, but I feel like people don't talk as much about how Yveltal can deal with both Calyrex forms without even breaking a sweat. It's the only Dark-type restricted legendary, allowing it to resist Ghost, and with an ability that boosts all Dark-type moves on the field, and due to the nature of some of the Dark-type moves it gets, it can one-shot both Calyrex forms without even needing a single point of offensive investment. Calyrex Shadow is 4 times weak to Dark, and with physical being the lower of its two defensive stats, it has absolutely no chance of living a Sucker Punch unless it holds a Culver Berry or really invests in its HP and physical defense. Calyrex Ice is only 2 times weak to Dark, but it becomes more susceptible to Foul Play, where its attack stat is being used against it. On a max HP, max attack, Brave Calyrex, Foul Play one-shots 75% of the time, which can easily become 100% if Calyrex has an attack boost or if Yveltal holds the Black Glasses. With an Assault Vest and Snarl, it can become super specially bulky and is able to heal itself with Oblivion Wing, an actual good special attacking flying type move. While this is mostly about VGC, I would like to add that the access to Terra and the lack of Yveltal is what caused Calyrex Shadow to be banned from Ubers and singles, so this thing would definitely help balance out the restricted metagame in VGC as well. We've seen this in Sword and Shield, but it's still hard to tell how Terra being in the mix will change things up. Next up is Jellicent. I'm genuinely shocked that Jellicent didn't see more usage in Sword and Shield, because it's the only Pokemon in the game, including newly released Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, that hard walls Urshifu Rapid. Urshifu Rapid was a little worse in Sword and Shield because Max Guard allowed you to protect from its contact moves that would normally hit through Protect. It didn't have access to Terra to boost its damage output, and Urshifu's Single Strike signature move was stronger and hits Jellicent for super effective, so most players probably just didn't see a lot of value in Jellicent being counterplay to Urshifu Rapid. Either way, Jellicent is a ghost type, so it's immune to fighting, and gets the ability Water Absorb, so it's immune to water. It also gets Will-O-Wisp, one of the only ways to cripple Urshifu, and Strength Sap, which Urshifu can just crit through, but it's still nice to be able to heal all the way back to full with one move, because it allows Jellicent to more consistently use Water Spout, the spread damaging water type move that does damage based on how much HP the user has left. Like Tapu Fini, it probably won't keep Scald, but it probably will keep Muddy Water as another water type attacking option. It's a ghost type with Trick Room, so it's not susceptible to Fake Out, and while its 60 speed isn't quite at the point that you would want for Trick Room, you could always use Frillish, which has 40 speed and all the same attributes as Jellicent, although you are giving up a lot of HP even if your defenses are better from the Eviolite. Last up is Arctozolt. Like Yveltal with Xerneas, I feel like when most people talk about the Gen 8 fossils having access to mechanics introduced in Scarlet and Violet, Dracovish is the one that gets all the attention since it could have access to Terra as another multiplier on top of all of its usual multipliers. However, another pretty major change made in Gen 9 was Hail being changed to Snow, and Arctozolt would take great advantage of that as an Ice type with the ability Slush Rush. At base 55 speed with maximum speed investment at level 50, doubling that makes its effective speed stat equivalent to a base speed stat of 161, meaning it can outspeed pretty much the entire unboosted metagame in the Snow other than Regieleki. Since Snow doesn't deal any chip damage, it has become significantly easier to build a team around it, and while Snow teams aren't entirely meta, they absolutely do have a niche in most formats. Electric Ice is a phenomenal offensive pairing, with Ice being able to hit 3 out of the 4 types that resist or are immune to Electric for super effective, while hitting the 4th for neutral. Arctozolt has access to the incredibly powerful move Bolt Beak that starts out at 85 power and doubles to 170 power when moving first, which it should be able to do consistently in Snow. So if it doesn't one-shot its opponents with Bolt Beak, it has Stab Ice moves to hit them with, while also being in a pretty safe position defensively from Snow. Throw on Assault Vest or Aurora Veil from Ninetales, and this thing is looking real strong once it gets access to Snow. And those are Dexited Pokemon that would be great to have back in Pokémon Champions. Let me know what other Pokemon you want back to balance out the metagame. Anyway, if you want to support me and my channel, just leave a nice comment since I do read all comments. You can also become a member for 99 US cents a month to get a badge next to your name and early video access like all of these lovely people. If you want bonus content, check out my second channel, Extra Bell, where I post videos I've scrapped from the main channel, as well as more casual, unscripted videos. Likes are also one of the ways that YouTube determines if a video should be passed around to more people, so if you feel that this video deserves to be, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.